I'm gonna put one foot in front of the other. I only take one step at a time. If I put one foot in front of the other, well, the walking brings me peace of mind. If you want to lay your burden down, but you can't find a way, just remember that the road gets tough from time to time each day. 'Cause everybody in this wide world has something they gotta say. So take a chance, don't you see, take my hand and we will be free. You know you gotta put one foot in front.
Hello, my name's John Jones, and I'm in southwestern Oregon at the moment at Camp Myrtlewood, and we're standing right over Myrtle Creek, which is in a February flow state at the moment, and it's quite high, but not anything like it sometimes gets. And we just wanted to talk about the ministry of Camp Myrtlewood in terms of ecological stewardship, our ecological stewardship mission, which we've been on for a long time. And we created a conservation easement back in 2015. And the whole point of what we're doing here at Camp Myrtlewood in terms of our stewardship of creation is to attempt to create an old growth forest that's 420 years old. That's 7 generations of Douglas-fir. Douglas-fir start to throw cones. They reach sexual maturity at about the age of 60 years. So 7 generations, that's 420 years. And we got the rain, and we've got the nutrients, and we're growing trees, and those trees are sequestering carbon.
We are living at a time when the earth is heating up everywhere. Temperatures are soaring and setting records, some places at dangerous levels. The polar ice caps are melting at alarming rates, and sea levels are rising, threatening the livelihood of many communities around the world. Hello, this is Brent Carlson. Welcome to Brethren Voices. Scientists indicate that the warming of the earth creates greater heating, providing for more energy for storms. Record rainfall has been reported in many areas around the world. In the United States, this prevented a high percentage of farmers in the Midwest from planting their fields this spring. What will they do, and what can we do in a world where our food supply is threatened and things seem to be rapidly changing? Camp Myrtlewood of the Pacific Northwest District of the Church of the Brethren, together with Wild Rivers Land Trust, has taken steps to help protect creation. We met with John Jones, who together with his wife Margaret served as Camp Myrtlewood managers for 30 years. We also met with Ann Schmier, Executive Director of Wild Rivers Land Trust, to discuss the importance of preserving land for future generations. We learned that carbon sequestering is one of the important things that can be done. As John Jones says, it's a way to turn the tables on climate change. We asked Ann Schmier to tell us about Wild Rivers Land Trust.
Wild Rivers Land Trust started in March of 2000, so we're just about celebrating 19 years of operation.
19, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But for many years it was started by Jerry Becker, who was a very committed conservationist, and looking at primarily the Elk River, started as the Elk River Land Trust. And more recently, in the last 5 years, has expanded our service area to include, since about 2014, all the way up from the 10-Mile Lakes region in above Coos Bay and North Bend down to the California border. So there's 2.2 million acres in our service area. And one of the really wonderful distinctions about the area that we work in is that there are 4 nationally designated wild and scenic rivers. These are very special places in the United States that are recognized for the natural attributes of these river systems. So there's 4. There's the Elk River, the Rogue River, the Illinois River, and the Chetco River. So we're very fortunate to have these wonderful, pristine places.
Water is our lifeblood. It keeps us alive, it keeps us healthy. We use it for everything. It cleans us on the outside, you know, as well as the inside.
Here, the natural world still comes first. You know, we still have these great trees, we have clean water, we have wildness, we have wild animals, we have salmon still running.
What we have here is one of the most intact old-growth forest ecosystems left. It's like an island of green.
All of that, to me, makes a beautiful landscape and the kind of place I just love to be. I think a lot of the value of just being human is in sharing. Ann and I get to share all of this intimately together, and then we pretty much spend most of our lives in efforts to share it with others. We want to save what we really have here for the generations to come so that they can know the kind of wonderful quality of life that we have here today.
I'm a rancher. Our family's been here ranching since 1872. We produce lamb and wool, basically, and some mutton. Ranching has been a part of the fabric of the family from day one. It's just what we do.
Ranching is fundamental to this region. We need these lands. We need these resources for the future. This is what we live on, this is what we live off of, this is what the rest of the ecosystem is dependent on, and they're absolutely critical. Development pressure is here, very intensely here. It has reached this area.
Most habitat is on private land. So if we can find ways to hang on to the ranches, then you almost automatically hang on to the natural resources at the same time.
Just look around. If you don't, this could all be housing. It wouldn't be the same.
The river is very special to me. The power and the peacefulness of it combined, it's really hard to explain. It gives me a bunch of different options on writing music. I can sit by the river here and just listen. I've written, I think I counted 10 or 12 songs about the river. The disregard for nature in general, it's happening all over the place. So what you do now, today, the impact that it will have down the road is so important.
I think if I had to pick one word to describe this place, it would just be awesome. Because it is awesome. When I go out on the rivers around here, I predominantly am kayaking, but I also like to go fishing quite a bit, especially in the winter when the steelhead are coming. And just swimming and snorkeling and looking at the fish. I just love to be in the water. One of my favorite things about this place is the density of wild and scenic rivers. It's unlike anywhere else in the lower 48 states. People are primarily coming here to be in a wild place. They want to see unspoiled mountains and rivers and sections of the ocean that aren't developed. It's a good marketing tool for my business. We can brag about how many wild and scenic rivers are in this area, and it makes people want to come here and enjoy it. Yeah, I don't think as many people would want to come here if the ocean was overdeveloped or if there was offshore oil drilling off the coast of Oregon. It wouldn't seem like such a wild place.
We need to protect the natural areas that remain here so that we're ready for these pressures of change when they come in the future. There are enough of them now, there'll be more in the future, and a land trust is set up to do just that job, to protect the very best natural areas that are left.
These rivers are just really special, and if they were to go away, it would be a shame. My business would suffer, the quality of life for the residents here would suffer, and so we really want it to stay the way it is now or get better. The land trust is helping secure the quality of life that we have here.
Wild Rivers Land Trust is working to make it work better for us, not just for wildlife, not just for wild areas. It's lined up to work with us too. It's a win-win deal.
This place is incredibly valuable in today's world. There are very few places like this left across our country and the world. The care of it is our responsibility. What happens to it now will affect it and people for the rest of time.
The Land Trust started their work with their first acquisition. We call it the Keystone Parcel. It's in the Elk River watershed, and it is 163 acres, and it is one of those places that had been previously logged, but now had maturing trees at 50, 60, 70-year-old trees, and really did not want that to be cut again. This property abuts a roadless area next to a wilderness area. So there's this connectivity from the wilderness area all the way down to the Elk River that this parcel provides. And so it creates this wonderful corridor for plants and animals to move from the river up into the protected wilderness area. It's called the Grassy Knob Wilderness Area. So this land was purchased with a very grassroots effort along the Elk River of many types of individuals coming together that are so committed and invested in this river. Fisher people, timber people, any number of private landowners that are committed to keeping this as a very wonderful and pristine area. Government agencies, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, as well as the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board that provided the bulk of the funding. But we had other people contribute money and effort into protecting this first property that we acquired in 2004. We are working diligently to work with private landowners to do voluntary conservation work. This can come in a number of different forms, but primarily we work with landowners to look at their property, and if they would like to create a conservation legacy with their land, they can put a conservation easement. It's one of the rights as a property owner that you would either donate or sell to the land trust. That interest, which is actually in, not to develop the land, and to develop a means to steward the land in perpetuity, forever, along a conservation pathway. One of the areas that we're keenly focused on in our coastal ecosystems are the salmon that inhabit our rivers, and they need cold, clean water. This is one of the challenges with climate change, is that the water temperatures of these rivers is increasing. We need to build resiliency in these systems of intact forest that will keep the water cool and allow those fish the best chance for survival through their entire life cycle.
This isn't exactly a question, but I'd like you to expand just a little bit on this relationship between the land trust and how it's attempting to help people, both Camp Myrtlewood and others that might want to establish conservation easements, or in some cases, like a timber company, like with the Bear Creek Wilderness area,
right,
or the Bear
right.
Creek Natural Area.
Mm-hmm.
That was a parcel, 200 acres or so, that a timber company actually owned, and I think part of that deal was that the timber company came to the land trust and said, this is ecologically valuable because of this and this and this. Could you possibly somehow find a way to purchase it? Because
right.
we really don't want to cut it.
Right.
Now there are these kinds of things going on that are, we hear about a world of people not getting along, and what I see happening with the land trust is that this is one of the places where people really do work to get along and really work for common interest for the natural environment, for creation.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think talking about Camp Myrtlewood is a great place, having it serve as a place for people to learn about the important processes that happen when you do conserve land. The carbon sequestration of the trees here on the property. There's old trees here, and we need to preserve as many old trees as we can. It provides a great sort of, I'll say, living laboratory for people to come and commune here in a peaceful place, but also learn the value of the forests and nature and how integral that is to our souls, really, and how it replenishes us and provides for us. It provides oxygen for us and takes in CO2 and provides shade for the rivers and helps clarify the water that enters the streams here. So I really look at Camp Myrtlewood as one of those places where people can learn the value of nature. It's a very friendly, accessible place to learn about how important nature is to our bodies and our souls. And I think it's a vital part of, we tend to lose that connectedness to nature, and I think it solves a lot of problems for people that really are challenged. My father had PTSD from World War II, and he found his therapy was nature therapy, and his means of healing his troubles was with fly fishing in the rivers of Puget Sound. So I think people need to realize how important nature and natural areas are for our well-being, not only physically but also mentally. So.
We have a term, nature deficit disorder.
Yeah.
And people are out of touch with nature. So many cell phones and stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And I can imagine your father and Frank Moore.
Yeah.
The Normandy invasion veteran who lives up the North Umpqua River. It was similar for him. It was terrible. He was in places like the Hurtgen Forest during World War II and came home with horrible PTSD. And this nature restoring element.
Yes.
More specifically, I want to ask you about when you talked about old trees being so important. Now, here at camp, we do have a lot of old trees compared to much private land in this area.
Yes.
Much of the private land in this area has gone to what I would call more tree farming than forestry. And every 30, 40 years you cut the trees down, clear cut, you plant more, kind of like you would corn or something. What I understand is that these older trees that are putting on a lot more carbon in terms of sequestering, those trees are absolutely of the greatest importance in terms of our forest sequestration of carbon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, you know, you can think about the physical tonnage of a tree. These are some of the largest organisms that live on our planet, our trees. The redwoods are the largest organisms in the world. And when you think about their capacity, the size of the canopy of these trees to capture sunlight, but also pull CO2, essentially where they derive energy is from taking carbon, CO2 out of the air, and that is their energy source along with sunlight. So these two elements come together, and that's the energy source for these organisms that are vitally important. The thing about old growth trees, there's a whole bunch of interesting things about old growth trees that they provide benefits for. First of all, the canopy catches the rain. We get a lot of rain here in Western Oregon, but it allows the water to slowly drop to the ground. If you have like a clear-cut area, those are really prone to erosion because the water just races off of them. And during the summertime, if it rains, the water that runs off of those clear-cut areas can get to very warm temperatures, bathwater temperatures, 70, 80 degrees of this water running off of these hillsides. If you have big trees with big canopy, the rain is going to slowly enter the ground, and it will slowly be deposited into the soil, which not only filters the soil or filters the water, but it also cools the water as it goes into the ground. You also have shading of streams with large trees that keep the sunlight off of those small streams. So there's a lot of benefits in that way, but also large trees help build soil, and they pull a lot of the carbon goes not only into their growing of the tree, but it goes down into the soil. And they found that tree roots support this whole other ecosystem in our soils. Bacteria and fungi that are fundamental to our ecosystems of breaking down nutrients, but the trees actually feed those organisms as well. So there's this pull of carbon down in deep into the soil that creates a much more larger effect of carbon sequestration than planting a whole bunch of little tiny trees.
So big woody debris gives life to the planet, to the land that it's on, even after the tree's down. And one of the things I learned years ago was that a tree gives more life after it falls in the forest than while it was standing.
Yes. And one of the things that I love about those big old trees that do fall in the forest are the little nurse trees that grow up out of them. They provide rich nutrients as it breaks down for the new trees to grow. So often you'll see a large tree that has fallen in the forest, and you'll see little tiny trees growing on top of it. And those are future trees. This is a cycle that has repeated for millennia of providing the nutrients back in the soil. One other point that I'd like to make is the importance of salmon and their connection to trees. They have found that the nutrients from salmon, healthy salmon runs that come back to forests, those forests grow much more rapidly and are much more healthy than trees that grow in a place with no salmon. So the salmon provide this huge marine influx of nutrients that come in, and they get dispersed out into the forest by bears and foxes and bobcats and every birds, crows, ravens that eat this, and that these nutrients get deposited far out into the forest. And they find that those forests grow faster, they're healthier, and they're more capable of being resilient in those forests.
And officially, in September of 2015, we filed that conservation easement with Coos County in the state of Oregon, and all of these large trees and everything in between in size, and all the plants and the stream and everything are part of that conservation easement, and will better assure for future generations that this will be a place of spiritual nurture for a long, long time to come, that carbon will continue to be sequestered here for perpetuity. And that's a big word, perpetuity. It's a little bit scary, but when we talk about Camp Myrtlewood, this idea of 420-year-old old-growth forest, that's a natural forest, that is a dream. But you can't dream without having some kind of results. And God doesn't call us to be successful, but God calls us to be faithful. So I'm saying to people, if you want to see if we end up being successful on our dream, come back in 300 years and take a look, see if we made it. And the cool thing is that we are sandwiched in between two United States government Bureau of Land Management parcels. One's 40 acres, one's 240 acres, and with our 190 acres, that makes up almost 500 acres of contiguous forest, which is very, very important to marbled murrelet, spotted owls, and all kinds of other species, including human population. And when we're looking at a major world concern like global climate change, Camp Myrtlewood might seem like a drop in the bucket, but we sequester something like 20,000 tons of carbon every year, and every time these trees continue to grow, they're putting on more carbon. So it may be a drop in the bucket, but there's drops in the bucket all over. And look at all these drops we have coming down out of the sky right now. A lot of drops. And when you start talking about people doing responsible stewardship all around the world, pretty soon you got the bucket pretty full.
I'm gonna put one foot in front of the other. I only take one step at a time. If I put one foot in front of the other, well, the walking brings me peace of mind. If you want to lay your burden down, but you can't find a way, just remember that the road gets tough from time to time each day. 'Cause everybody in this wide world has something they